Hello, welcome to my channel, Save Infinity. In this video, I just wanted to talk about kind of like the ideas of, like the topics of the fall of Atlantis, Gobekli, Tepe, Earth kind of being like an Earth school or what have you, Ascension, those sort of kind of like ideas kind of rounded together. In this whole kind of vibe of how, Earth is kind of used as like a school in that aspect to kind of like evolve species or souls or what have you. And how like Gobekli Tepe was like buried, ancient artifacts and things like that, and buried and preserved almost for like a perfect time for them to be discovered in this day and age. Almost like they just could foresee, such a thing, and, having certain symbolism and stuff like inscribed on their like artifacts or what have you that really relate to this point in time in history, kind of like the Mayan calendar, like relating to this point in time of history and really relating to that whole kind of roughly 26,000 year cycle that we go through of like remembering and forgetting, of how I like to call it. There's like this 26,000 year cycle that we kind of go through of forgetting and remembering our more like innate, what we are, source tuned God self type aspect. And so like places and things like the Mayan calendar and Gobekli Tepe were really pointing to the end of this cycle that we're now approaching. And how on one hand as well, that can bring up a lot of ideas of things of like, the fall of Atlantis and stuff like that. But also, from that point, kind of remembering we're kind of on this slightly different curve to the time of Atlantis, where they kind of, fell and went into a time of forgetting. And then now we're coming out of that period of forgetting into an age of remembering. So it's kind of like the flip side of the coin, like same cycle, but just kind of different perspective. And then, also with that as well, the fall of Atlantis and things like that too, there's also the whole aspect of, they got to a point of being so spiritually or what have you, like advanced and technologically advanced, but kind of started using it for a bit more nefarious or not so great reasons, and so it was all kind of wiped away to kind of get rid of it before it escalated too seriously. But there's also the way that it does just line up to a natural cycle itself, and with a realm of infinity and various timelines or what have you as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that all timelines and all beings and souls from that period like fell into an age of forgetting as well. Like some may have ascended through that process, or like graduated, if you will. And from that, period of that age being over and, completed and ready for a new cycle to begin, in order for, this phase and stage of humanity to evolve properly without being, influenced by, past times and being influenced by, like periods like Atlantis. Everything kind of had to be wiped in a way that it's kind of like, like a fresh restart. So we kind of do start off not remembering or having evidence or remnants of such things around that we can kind of use and copy off, so we can kind of evolve and grow on our own accord into our own like little individual unique versions of humanity. Kind of like once a class, a year 12 or whatever you want to call it, like end of schooling class finishes all their schooling, you don't want to leave all their books with all the answers to all the tests behind. You kind of want to take all those answers to the tests they did away, and then allow the next generation of students to come in and learn their own way, and and give answers to similar sort of tests in a different way, from a different perspective, in their own growth, rather than just copying the previous answers from the students before them. And in that sense, it does really make a lot of sense why places that were existing around in that time, like Atlantis and other parts of civilization around the planet and stuff that were existing, or were kind of like, you know, destroyed and hidden under the ocean or what have you, as a way to kind of like hide all that existence in order for the next generation or the next class to, you know, to evolve without that being around. And then why, you know, in this period we are now in a period of, you know, entering the age of awakening and remembering and all that, what have you, is while we're also starting to find and come across more evidence of these sort of like places and existence of things, because we are now at a point where we can, you know, be exposed to such things. And so, you know, it all kind of just like interlinks and intermingles and has a rhyme and a reason and purpose behind it all, beyond just, you know, a grand disaster that occurred and now it's all, you know, been a terrible period of us, you know, having to go back to the beginning of humanity and all that sort of stuff. There is like, you know, a more positive rhyme and reason to those sort of things as well, to kind of, you know, have a more complete perspective of the whole picture. And, you know, with time, you know, being more like a spiral and what have you, as opposed to just like a straight line, it does mean, you know, getting to these points in time can almost mean in a way almost the spiral loops around to a similar point in time where the period of Atlantis was looped. So a lot of those sort of energies and memories or what have you can kind of energetically bleed through a bit, that it can, you know, make things feel a little bit more fearful or doom and gloom around this period of time of like, oh, what could happen? Are we going to have like an Atlantis fall? But it doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means those sort of, you know, energies that haven't been alchemized from that point in time can kind of bleed through now that we're at a similar cross point of that time spiral. And, you know, for us as well, now we're, you know, moving into more advanced technology, and with things like AI and all that sort of stuff, you know, Atlantis and that period of time was, you know, very advanced in a way of more spiritual technology, you know, and being able to, you know, like levitate and things like that. And we're now like getting more to a advanced point with like our more like nuts and bolts type technology, if you will. And it's, you know, kind of similar expansion and similar sort of tests or, you know, pathways we can take of, you know, how will we use and implement this technology to allow us to, you know, grow and ascend as a species, and, you know, what we want to, you know, kind of how we want to do that and treat that kind of determines, you know, the timelines that we align to and slot into. You know, obviously there's so many infinite possible outcomes of how such a technological and spiritual like expansion can take us through. And so it's, you know, really about us being mindful in the ways we do use such knowledge and such technology and such expansion to benefit, you know, humanity, the planet, and, you know, the greater cosmos, and just spiritual well-being of, you know, source and everything in and of itself. And so from that angle, you know, really trying to just perceive it all and work with it all, less from like a fear-based doom and gloom type aspect, you know, of where we like integrate these things from a more like positive, mindful and healthier, beneficial aspect, as opposed to a dealing with it all in a very fear-based aspect. And especially the more advanced technologies get with things like AI or what have you, and, you know, the whole idea of them making like AI robots or whatever have you, and the way we interact with that, you know, everything is, you know, consciousness and energy, and so what we kind of put out into the field is reflected back at us. And so, you know, building that relationship with our inner and outer worlds in a way that's, you know, cohesive and collaborative, and integrating it all together, as opposed to kind of othering or fear-basing or using it for control or power or domination, really will, you know, reflect the sort of reality and timelines we kind of, you know, move and shift into. You know, and from that aspect as well, not, you know, focusing too much on it from a world view, and more, you know, what you can kind of do to align yourself personally, because there are, you know, so many infinite different timelines and what have you. So, you know, kind of where your alignment is kind of decides what reality you align to and what greater world reality comes along with that. So if you're focusing and attaching too much to a certain outer world reality and trying to change that, you know, you're really focusing and drawing yourself in on that, instead of kind of just trying to align yourself to, you know, an energetic outcome to allow the outer world to manifest that potential for you from the infinite quantum field. You know, remembering that whole aspect of reality being more like a mirror in that aspect, you know, to change the reflection in the mirror, right? You know, you don't go and put makeup on the mirror, you put makeup on yourself, or you don't go and try and change the hair and the reflection on the mirror, you go and change your hairstyle, right? Like that sort of aspect, you know, to change the manifestation around us of the reality we delve in really takes a lot of, you know, we have to energetically align our own alignment and the alignment of the collective, you know, subconscious and the collective consciousness and energetic, you know, ways of humanity itself. And yeah, you know, I'm saying this is all exactly how it works, or exactly how the process will go, or exactly how it did go in the past, or anything like that, but just from my own downloads and understanding and, you know, visions and what have you, I just thought I'd, you know, just make a little video just kind of discussing these sort of topics, just to put a little bit of food for thought out there for you. All right, we're sending you so much peace, love, light, and blessings as always.